It's not quite as yellow as I think it's supposed to be.
Yeah, but green works.
Well, it's supposed to be purple, green, and gold, but
Oh, well.
it's almost there.
Ah!
Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show, your new favorite pop culture YouTube channel where we talk about movies, TV, music, and more. And as always, this is a spoiler show for a 12-year-old movie, so you have been warned. Before we get started, I want to say thank you to all of our friends and fans. Please like and subscribe. Apparently, the thumbs up does the best for boosting us through the algorithm. Yeah. We're trying to boost. We're trying to get that cash. So if you like what we're doing and like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, share, donate, patron, all of the above and below.
Toss a coin to your YouTuber, please. And thank you.
No one really stuck with you. On today's episode, we are going to talk about the 2009 Disney animated feature film, The Princess and the Frog.
In the tradition of Walt Disney's most beloved classics comes the story behind the most magical kiss the world has ever known. Walt Disney Pictures, The Princess and the Frog.
I don't have a specific reason for why we're doing this now. It's not, well, so I have two specific reasons for why we're doing this now.
I don't know why you're trying to lie.
I was trying to start with something that sounded like the very beginning. So we were gonna do this for Mardi Gras, but the Tiana doll that I ordered, she was February's doll, but she didn't ship till March 17th.
Which was St. Patrick's Day.
Which coincidentally for me has become my Princess and the Frog Day. And I think it's as simple as it was released on March 15th on Blu-ray. And so I think that I watched it then and I started equating it with St. Patrick's Day. And it's like, it's not, I mean, none of it's Irish. It's Louisiana. But I think the green, and I think, I don't know. There's something about it that feels springy to me. So I think anywhere in the February, March, April section of the year feels appropriate. Sure. But do you have anything you want to say starting off, getting into this?
It's so pretty. I love it.
We kind of love this movie. We saw it in theaters and you were like really excited because it was the 2D animation. And I don't remember if Tangled was on our radar at this point yet. I think
was this pre-Tangled?
By a year.
Okay.
But I think we knew Tangled was digital.
We did because it was one of many things that preemptively annoyed us about Tangled.
We thought we were anti-Tangled until we saw it, and then we were decidedly pro-Tangled.
I love this movie. Of the ones that have come out in the 2000s and 2010s, well, Tangled is my favorite, but this one is a very close second.
I think it's underrated. I think it's very underrated in a way that suits it, because I will say, as much as I do love it, and I do, there's something about it that doesn't quite soar. And
it doesn't have enough songs, in my opinion.
Well, I think it's a very specific thing. When they said it in 1920s New Orleans, it really grounded it to a very specific time, place, aesthetic. Again, that I think works for and against it. And so I'm in a very, pun intended, I love this movie, warts and all.
Yeah.
You reach a point where at a certain point, something just becomes what it is. And you love it for that, because I do genuinely love all of the songs. But when I'm not listening to them, I kind of forget about them entirely. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. It's sort of like the back half of Frozen.
Yeah.
In that way.
Yeah. Because there's actually, when we were watching it this time, I was like, man, there are like 7 songs in this. But they're all sort of they're kind of similar. There's a lot of, except for the one I do love, Mama Odie, the Dig a Little Deeper, where it goes full-fledged gospel.
Very good.
And I love that it even like turns into like a cathedral at the end
with all of her like swamp animals too. Yeah.
So for me, that is one of several things that is defining of this movie. Is this movie is gorgeous,
stupid pretty.
It is so beautiful. It is expensive.
Yeah.
It is beautifully directed. You are constantly looking at something. Mm-hmm. And considering that we're dealing with a lot of greens and browns, you never get tired.
And it doesn't all blend into
it doesn't turn
mush.
Into a muddy mess.
Yeah. It's really, really beautiful. And it's like, I think and I've said it before, but it's absolutely the reason that I like Sleeping Beauty so much, because Sleeping Beauty, I will admit, it is boring. It's a really boring movie, but it's so beautiful to look at. Like every single part of it, like the fairies are beautiful to look at. Aurora is beautiful to look at. The little curl in her hair is beautiful to look at, but it's like the backgrounds, the fact that the backgrounds of Sleeping Beauty are all oil paintings is the thing that I get stuck on the most. And like, this movie, The Princess and the Frog, reminds me of that aspect.
And this has sort of like a living oil painting. Yeah. Like if oil and water, like a watercolor was an oil. I don't know. Yeah. There's something about it that it just sort of like seeps and almost oozes. That sounds like a gross word, but it
that makes sense. I get it.
I love it so much. I find the characters to be actually very interesting. I think that this movie, we'll get to Tiana in a minute. Mm-hmm. I think this movie has two extremely, extremely underrated and underutilized Disney characters. Do you know?
One of them is Charlotte.
And the other one is Louis.
Okay, Louis. The alligator, yeah.
He is so funny to me. So funny. That little vignette when he tries to join the
little band, the little jazz
band, the steamboat or whatever. And he's like playing, he like jumps in, he's like, now's my time to shine. Yeah. And he's like playing and they all get terrified because he's an alligator. And it's like a half a second where he's like,
and it does the little blink, blink, blink
where he's
sound.
Like waiting for the applause.
Oh, I tried once. It didn't end well.
I remember we saw this in the theater and my husband almost had a coronary when that happened.
Really?
He thought it was so funny.
Well, and so another thing about this movie is shockingly rated G. They stopped rating Disney movies G after this. Tangled is PG. Yeah. And this movie is dark. It gets dark a handful of times.
It's actually like low-key terrifying.
Scary.
Yeah.
The shadow demons are, as an adult, I'm afraid. But I was going to say it not just because most Disney movies have like a handful of like scary moments, but it's like there's an edge to the entire movie because when Louis is jumping off of the ferry, he's just being riddled with bullets.
Yeah.
There's just so many guns are like,
yeah, into the water.
And you just like a year later, and that would not have made it into the movie.
Well, it's also, I mean, even leaving that aside, you can get to a really existential place about when they choose to remain frogs but stay together. And I'm like, frogs have such a short lifespan. So you're like giving up a long, like you're not going to keep your human lifespan.
It goes to some heavy places. Yeah. It's famous for being Disney's first African-American princess. Mm-hmm. I said that with finger quotes because she quite literally is an African-American princess. That term gets debated because not all. Yeah.
But it also has a lot of heat because she is a frog for like 90% of her screen time.
I have stuff to say about that as well.
You're burning through plot.
You're burning through talking points. It gives the movie an onus and a mantle it doesn't deserve. Mm-hmm. They went through so much testing with this movie and with Tiana because, and it's the problem with representation when you don't have varied representation, is that one one person has to speak for all.
It's like when Patty Jenkins directed Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well,
if you only have one female character,
Yeah.
she has to represent every female.
And it's like, if Patty Jenkins can't make a superhero movie, then no women can ever. And it's like,
Like her name was originally Maddie, and somewhere I forget where, I think so they were afraid that was going to sound too much like Mammy. And like her hair, they went through so many different, they like labored to make her hair a certain way. And it ultimately, in their attempt to please everybody, they ended up kind of
pleasing nobody.
It's just sort of in a bun. And
It's
that's
just
one of the
like-
reasons why I love this doll so much, is I
It's so
love
good.
the natural texture, the like.
But I just don't, I don't understand.
We are uniquely ill-equipped to talk
are.
about this. I just want to acknowledge that.
No, we
But-
definitely are, but it's just sort of that you're right, because it does just end up in like, I mean, like I like it at the beginning when she's got a little texture and she's working and everything, but even still, it's like, I don't know what would have been the problem with her having hair like this.
I'll pull
Nothing.
some of there's like 2 or 3 pieces of concept art that are beautiful. And I just, it does sort of, it makes me a little bit like, ugh. Having said that, I think she is beautiful.
She super is, yeah.
I love Tiana. But I think it's the kind of thing where it's like, it once again, it works in the movie's favor, but also, like I said, is sort of like this like weird onus that the movie has to live up to, because there is a criticism that, given the fact that this is Disney's first, first African-American princess, she does spend a large portion of the movie as a frog. And there are some people, I mean, our friends, Nick and
friend
Tiffany
Monique,
talked about it as not loving that. And
Well, I mean, let's touch on the elephant in the room, which is the fact that we should all just also be grateful that there's not natural hair on the frog. You know that was in a meeting. You know someone said that in a meeting. You know it. You cannot convince me otherwise.
So I think that that's a fair comment, a fair criticism to make when dealing with, like I said, again, unfortunately, with this being the only example, then yes, things like that factor in, because there's a similar thing with like your favorite Sleeping Beauty, like Aurora. I think she has 18 lines of dialogue.
Yeah. Oh, it's
like,
very little.
She is very quiet and not present in her own movie.
I don't like it because it's a feminist masterpiece.
But the point is, it's like, but when she doesn't have to represent all blonde women, it's not quite as big of an issue.
Right. Which, in my opinion, just goes to a fail. It's more a failing of the Disney Corporation for not having done this kind of thing sooner. Because before this, we had Jasmine and Pocahontas, and that's kind of it for, like, princesses of color. And even those are very dicey.
Well, so a lot of times, okay, so it's like a lot of the Disney, they're taking inspiration from the folklore and the origins of the folklore. And so because of, our colonialism and Eurocentric history, art and history, we're not familiar with a lot of like African, Asian, like a lot of that folk stuff.
Oh, Mulan. I forgot Mulan.
Well, because they were working on Aida.
Oh, God. Talk about dark.
That's it went to it started as an animated production and moved into Broadway.
Okay.
So that's sort of, it's a thing I like to say where I'm like, it's not an excuse, it's an explanation. It's just sort of how we got to that part. Because if anything, Ariel should have been black with all of the Jamaican, with all of the Caribbean island music and stuff, which hopefully they're in the process of remedying that with a live action movie. That's
don't been have coming for 6 years.
Yeah,
now.
I don't have hopes.
I don't have high hopes, and also because
but those are Rob Marshall based. They're not.
Well,
Halle Bailey.
No.
I think Halle will be exquisite.
It's gonna be amazing. All those Caribbean animals in Denmark beg to differ.
But I will say that I think that, like I said, that's a fair comment to make. That's a fair criticism. It was never a factor for me because this movie, I think, does have a very distinct identity, a very distinct visual style. And from my perspective, from my point of view, I think that there are a lot of black characters, black faces, black, like it. I don't feel like we're at
Prince Naveen is something else.
He is so hot.
Yeah.
And it always, I've gotten to a point where I'm like fine with it now, but I've never thought that his characterization fit the animation.
Oh.
I expect him to be so much more suave, and he comes off as kind of smarmy. And
yeah. Well, I mean, he is suave, but it's like that's his character arc.
It fits me. It fits for the frog, but he's just kind of slimy, which again, pun intended. It's mucus. I love that joke. But that is but one of the many ways that I think that there's a complexity or sort of like not quite maturity, but I was like, this deals with some, because it's like he's been cut off by his family.
Yeah.
And he's
because
like
he
a philanderer.
Yeah.
He literally talks about his hundreds of girlfriends.
Well, at a certain point, something has to be braggadocio. Like, that's maybe not literal, but
I think it might be. And again, it works, and I have come to the place where I love it. But I do remember, because he is just so like classically good looking when we first see him, that it always throws me when the frog is like so
just a frog,
kind of smarmy. I don't know.
Like he doesn't have a jawline.
Kind of, yeah. But I love Tiana so much. So I love Anika Noni Rose. She stood out, like she leapt off the screen for me in Dreamgirls. I was like, who is that? And I learned her name, and I was so excited when she got this part. Apparently she didn't even know it was, like, she knew she was auditioning for a Disney movie, but she just assumed it was the sidekick.
Oh.
She was like well into the auditioning process when they were like, no, it's the lead. It's a princess.
That's funny. I remember seeing her in Dreamgirls too, because my initial reaction was that I was shocked at how good Beyonce was as an actor, as a serious actress in that movie. And then after that, I was like, oh yeah, God, Anika is so good.
Actually, we should rewatch Dreamgirls and talk about it. Well, but we have mixed feelings about it. But it can't decide if it's a musical or not, because it makes so many of the songs are I almost know this word. It's diegetic, right? And that's when there's a source for the music within. Yeah. So like the first half of the movie is diegetic, and then halfway through it turns into like a proper musical, and it's the Effie We All Got Pain part.
That one. Because it also is like almost one of the turning points is the Beyonce song Listen, because the lyrics are, and she is recording it as a real song, so Jamie Foxx can hear it, but it's also like she's saying it to herself as well. it's very bizarre, but that is my favorite song on the soundtrack.
Yeah, and that she just really, I think she's a Broadway person. I think like that's where she originated, and I think it shows her theatricality. Well,
her theatricality and her voice is unbelievable.
Isn't
she like tiny too?
I think so.
She teeny tiny. I love it when voices like that come out of teeny tiny people.
Well, because they also apparently they like very specifically didn't want to stunt cast her, because several people up to and including Jennifer Hudson and Beyonce like wanted the role, but they didn't want the celebrity to overshadow the character.
There's not really a lot of celebrities in this.
Well, there's Oprah and John Goodman.
Yeah, but
they're
their
like
roles
side
are both
yeah.
very small. Yeah. Yeah, she's 5'2". She's super teeny.
Because I do love Oprah as Eudora. But I just think the animation is so beautiful. But back to Tiana, this was also so I think if they had stunt cast her, it would have helped the movie initially, immediately. But I do sort of agree that I think it would have been tied to a celebrity or like a point in time versus allowing Tiana to be her own thing, because this was a point for me where I was really genuinely starting to understand what representation meant and why it mattered and all of that. And so I went into the movie very positive and very enthusiastic for her. And so in this weird way, she became this like guiding light figure. I don't know. I am so passionate about Tiana. I think she's so I do love that she's in between, because it's like it's between the there was the Disney Renaissance in the 90s, and then they're in I don't even know, would we call it a platinum age?
There's been stuff that's not been floating my boat lately, so.
But I mean, Tangled, Frozen, Moana, like
sure, yeah.
So there was, and those were all very progressive. They kind of famously, Frozen and Moana and getting into Encanto, they like didn't have a grand romance.
Yeah.
And I do love that Tiana both has a grand romance, but also her own identity and dream that is apart from that.
In fairness, Ariel's dream does not hinge on Eric. She sings her I Want song before she even sets eyes on him. She just wants to go where the people are.
No, absolutely. But I like that the romance is something that it's the funny thing on the way to the forum. Yeah. Versus
it's not the destination. It's just something that happens to her along. And I love too that like she's single-mindedly driven in like a work capacity.
But
which is interesting to me.
It is. And also to a point where a handful of people have to tell her
relax. Pull back, relax.
Just a little bit. Yeah. Not a lot, but just a little bit. And I just sort of I love that she knows who she is and what she wants, and she will do whatever it takes to get there. And the spirit, like, and it's like I don't want to sell the negative. Like I'm not trying to praise negative aspects of this, where it's like, of course, self-care and of course things other than work matter. But I do love the grace and the selflessness through which she does so much of this. And there's this presence of her father where we meet him in the beginning, and then he is
also so hot.
I was like, I forgot how handsome her father was.
Just like Rapunzel's dad.
He kind of disappears from the movie, and it's very implied through the entire middle chunk until we get to the end, that scene with Dr. Facilier, where Dr. Facilier is like, your father worked his fingers to the bone and died before he got his dream. And it's dark and it's sad. And I just love the moment for Tiana where she is able to overcome that.
Because
and
she basically says back what her mother said to her, where she's like, and what her father said to her, where it's like, it's not that he didn't get his dream, it's that he didn't get the restaurant, but he had a loving wife and daughter and a community around him that loved and appreciated and, but relied on him.
There's a subtle generational where it's like, he didn't specifically get the one thing that he wanted, but his work will give her
the leg up. Yeah.
And so in a way that, because obviously this is a Disney animated movie, for children. And so it's like, there is the divide, there is the class and the ethnic, the racial divide in the beginning between Charlotte and her father and Tiana and Eugenia and their Eudora, sorry, and their family. And it's subtle, but it's there. And I think the thrum of sort of the generational blessings, the generational, like it just touches on it very subtly. But I think, again, from an outside perspective, I think it is very fitting, very poetic for the people in the time period.
Yeah, I agree. I really like it too. And it's also to go with not necessarily the darkness, but the like more adult themes, I guess. Like even from the very beginning, the fact that Eudora works for Big Daddy and Charlotte, and then when they're taking the trolley home, you see the like degeneration of the houses, kind of. And it's like from minute one, it's very like things are different, but they don't put a button on it. And like Tiana and her mother are treated very fairly by. And
I think that's an interesting and a fair conversation to have all ways around, because it's like, is it a corporation's responsibility to?
Because I would argue that yes, it is.
You think so?
I mean, at a certain point in the year 2009, I think it's a little bit Disney's responsibility to be making smart choices in how they're telling these stories.
I don't think that they should be rewriting or whitewashing history.
Right.
But also, is this? And I guess is what I'm saying is I think that the movie, given this very difficult task, I think it
It did what it could.
Yeah, I think it does it well. I don't know that it's perfect.
No,
I don't know that
definitely
perfect
not.
was even possible. And
well,
so,
no, especially if they're making it by committee like that, you know, having endless having endless meetings about how hot Flynn Rider should be is acceptable. Having endless meetings about the Black Princess's hair is a little stupid.
But also, you have to do it to an extent. Like, you have to have someone.
To an extent,
it depends on who's in the room.
It absolutely depends on who's in the room, and there definitely absolutely should be Black women in the room to be like, well, this is there.
I'm going to navigate away from.
How does she not have finger waves at some point? Are you kidding me?
Well, she does have like the like.
She has a little swirl.
Yeah, the curl, the Art Deco. I'm going to navigate away from that part specifically because, like I said, we are two whiteys. I want
two whiteys who want Black women to have their natural hair if that's what they want. I want them to see that.
No, but it's like I want to acknowledge these things, but also I don't want to overspeak. So we'll navigate away from that part. But another thing that I do love about this and about her is she has like 9 different costume changes.
So many.
I love how many dresses.
Even 2 different identical waitress uniforms, but they're different colors, and so
she has 2 wedding dresses. Like I love it so much. It's so
and her dress in her dream is different. Her like vision is different. It's like, ugh.
Do you like that Art Deco sequence? That's very like when the animation style changes.
I do.
And
yeah.
I know you we both feel passionately about Charlotte. Did you have anything you wanted to say about her?
I fucking love Charlotte. She is such an interesting
I'm glad they didn't make her a villain.
I'm super glad they didn't make her a villain. And she's also a really interesting side character. And I also really love having the blonde princessy one be sidelined like she is. But she is so funny because she also, all she wants is to marry a prince. And then she even sort of has a revelation where she's like, well, but is it 100% necessary? And I just think that she is also a little crazy like a fox, specifically for when they're at the masquerade party and the little boy dressed like the jester, not a little boy, but the boy dressed as a jester is like trying to flirt with her and dance with her. And she's like, Travis, when a woman says later, she means not ever. And she just is like, go dance with someone else. And she's so flouncy and like, I just love her. She's so
her animation
funny.
Because she has that little button nose.
Yep.
And I always found it very interesting that she has such a long waist.
Well, it's like, it's the fashion. It's like the waistline of the dress is hitting at her hips. That was the thing.
But I still think she has like she's uniquely shaped, uniquely animated. And I just sort of love that she's terrible without being awful.
Well, she's just a spoiled brat, but not in like an oppressively mean
But she's
way.
not cruel.
Yeah.
Like she's not. And I think it's very interesting. And though they do sideline her, I do love that we kind of check in on her several times. I do love John Goodman as it's Big Daddy.
Big Daddy, yep.
He has such character to his voice.
John Goodman is fabulous. Even from minute 1 where they're talking about the beignets and how they need them for the party and this and that. And Charlotte snatches the beignet that he's about to eat out of his mouth. And he just goes, what just happened?
That's it.
What just happened?
There's
Next
little
level,
moments just all through it. Because I love the costume party, all the different and that I think that's what I mean where I'm like, this was expensive. Like they were not cutting corners with the animation here. There's a scene where Lottie's dancing and her dress flies up and you can see the bustling underneath it.
And
like,
the hoop skirt.
Yeah. There were so many things that
not even a hoop, it's like a cage skirt. So it's different. It's a little different.
But it's like there are so many things that's not necessary.
Yeah.
But it is so appreciated. And I always noticed how beautiful the movie was, but I wasn't always sort of like dissecting it the way I was this time because I knew we were going to be doing this.
Yeah.
And there's just so many shots. There's so like the action is, and that's kind of where I was like the direction in this, like it is so, it's so deep.
And it's also really interesting once they are frogs, how the action, you're like closed in it. It's sort of like an Ant-Man movie or a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie where it's like everything kind of gets bigger compared to them. It's very fun.
Just like there's always something new to look at in a way that like I said this could have been, because even something like The Little Mermaid, Disney was a bit, it's hard to believe or remember, but Disney was not always the juggernaut that it is.
They were struggling, yeah.
And like The Little Mermaid's a little bit cheap.
Mhm.
Like when you go back and watch it, the animation is very bare.
Yeah.
It's very sort of like, how do we get...
They blew their whole wad on the purple dress when she comes out of the water.
It has its moments.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, but when you go back and watch, there's times where I'm like, ooh, this was very sort of like, it was very standard animation.
Yeah.
In a way that this, like, it's just, it's so luscious. I also do love all the Mardi Gras color. I love it's very Louisiana 101, but again, also it's for kids. So.
But Dr. Facilier is very purple. There's like so much purple and like maroon on him.
Do you want to talk about Dr. Facilier?
He is so slimy. It's Keith David, right?
Well, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
it's like, isn't
What?
he the one that you think is hot?
He's a little hot.
I was gonna say,
He's a
I was like, I remember you being like,
He's like evil hot.
I remember
He's
you being
all
like,
skinny and all angles, and he's got magic and tooth necklaces, and yeah, I don't know. He's a little hot. He's not as hot as Naveen. He's a little hot.
but and the all the hoodoo, the voodoo, and he has
Yeah.
like the skull paint and like
Yeah.
I said, because this thing gets scary a handful of times.
This
but-
is, I think, for me, maybe the scariest villain demise of like all of them. It's scary. He gets essentially
dragged
dragged to hell alive. So it's like, Mother Gothel falls out the window, and as she's falling, she turns to ash. So it's like I don't know. This is so
it's a little
spooky.
bit more metaphoric,
Yeah.
because it's like she de-ages.
Yeah.
But this is Well, he warned.
Yeah, he was warned.
And he warned
was
us
warned.
the whole time.
Yeah. That was the one thing when we were watching that I love, because I guess she hesitates a little because she gets the little amulet or whatever, and that's when Dr. Facilier finds Tiana when she has the little like mask amulet. And then that's when he shows her like what could be, like what could happen. But then the minute she gets that amulet back in her little froggy hands again, she does not hesitate she just is like, well, bam.
It's not slime. It's mucus.
Right on the ground.
And that's another thing with the frog is it's like the frog conversation is I do love frog Tiana so much.
She's so pretty.
I think she's so cute. And I love that they actually, because it's only like a day or two, but I love that they have, for a Disney animated movie, they have a courtship.
Yep.
Like it feels
He like
kind of earned.
minces her dinner and makes her a little pearl ring. Then he puts it in a walnut.
And he's all flustered and he keeps like doing a bad job.
And he puts a moth on like a bow tie.
And just because you're right, like trying to get Charlotte to save him, and the fact that, because you said a thing that, and I agree with you, but it's like Charlotte keeps putting so much on the beignets and how she's going to use them to woo Naveen.
Yeah.
And there's that scene where Tiana falls into the table. It's actually kind of
Horrible. She does. You were right. She gets thrown around.
it was just a little shocking. I was like, oh my God, because she like falls.
Yeah.
And all the beignets fall and like hit the ground and stuff. And Lottie comes like running up, and I could just feel the like, you ruined it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't
But
do
she just
that
is like,
at
what
all.
happened? And I love that the voice performance of her the way she says what happened is also very cute. And then she just is like, okay, well, let's go get you cleaned up. And that's it. There's like,
Well, because we even made a comment where when she decides that she wants Tiana to cater
yeah.
the party, and she gives her all that money. And I was like, if only you had just had Tiana cater a few more parties.
That is legitimately the thing that breaks this movie for me, is I'm like, she is on such good terms with Big Daddy and Lottie. And I know she doesn't want to take charity. She wants to work for it. But how many parties must they have? And you've never asked before.
I felt that way. But the more I thought about it, I was like, we don't want it to set a precedent for kids that you have to have connections.
A rich friend. Sure.
Or that, and I like the implication that the only exchange of money between them was for a service.
Yeah.
And we don't get any indication that she's not generous, because she gives Tiana the dress once her first costume gets messed
Which
up.
is better than the pink one.
The blue one.
It's better than Lottie's pink dress for sure.
I just love when she wants the dress from the book.
Yeah.
And Big Daddy's like, yeah. He was like, well, I'll have you make it. And they just show
All
the,
of her
like...
pink flouncy dresses.
But no, ultimately, I do. I think it is the correct choice, the way that they handle those parts of the movie, and it's the stuff like that it settles in and resonates over time. And I think that's why so many Disney movies, like of course Disney has had big hits, but a lot of Disney movies become the classics that they are
over time.
Yeah. And
I also like it goes back a little to what we said before, but I do like that this is you still get the like true love conquers all message at the end, but it's not Tiana only discovers that by happenstance, like by chance. She's not looking for true love.
Well, and fucking Mama Odie, like
that whole entire song, and Tiana's like, just gotta work harder, and Mama Odie is like, God damn it.
But I love it. And their like wedding scene in the Bayou is so beautiful. It is breathtaking. And the moment that, because I remember getting there with the movie where it's like once they kiss, I was like, holy shit, she's a princess now. And that mama, it's very Glinda, it's very Wizard of Oz. You wouldn't have believed me. You came down in a big bubble.
What did she call her?
You psycho glitter bitch. That animation, this is, and you know what high praise this is for me. But for me, it rivals Cinderella's.
Yeah.
Cinderella's dress.
Yeah.
I think possibly on purpose. I noticed it the most this time, but there's nods to previous Disney movies all through this.
Oh yeah, when Charlotte and the prince are dancing. Yep.
And the star that she wishes on is Pinocchio. It's very.
It is apparently meant to be Venus.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, the goddess of love. Evangeline.
Well, Venus and Mars, we see, but so to date this, we watched SNL last night and there was a amusing skit. It was hosted by Zoe Kravitz and they did an amusing Princess and the Frog skit. And a lot of the jokes were about it being sort of a second tier Disney movie. Whatever, blah, blah, low-hanging fruit. But I wondered if it ended with Andrew Dismukes coming in as Ray, talking about how he was the single worst Disney character ever created. And I wanted to know if you had anything to say about that.
I disagree. Because the tow truck voiced by Larry, the cable guy, also still exists. That's actually a little rude. I kind of like Mater, but I like Ray.
Loved Ray. You always loved Ray.
So he's hideous to look at, but he is adorable inside and a romantic, and he sacrifices for the love of others.
And it's heavy.
So sad. We watch him expire.
Yes. But him being in love with Evangeline.
Yes.
And her not being real.
Yeah.
But the other fireflies.
Just let him have it.
It's like, I'm telling you, like I was having a mild existential because it's like, it makes him happy and therefore makes them happy. And it's like,
not hurting anybody. And when he dies, he gets to be a star right next to her.
But I also love the implication in the animation because it shows the clouds sort of parting and there's another star there. And so it's like, was it always there and it was just obscured? Who's to say?
No.
But but the star comes out and they hold hands.
Little sparks. It's beautiful.
I remembered that he because you are correct, expires.
We watch his little butt light turn out. It's a whole thing.
And then I had forgotten about the Firefly funeral because it's like an hour and 40 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it's not very long.
I mean, that's all. I mean, when you consider Cinderella as a tight 78 minutes,
it's an hour and 37.
But a lot happens. Yeah. I was like, man, this goes through some plot. I don't know that I needed the like Thibodeau and Boudreaux backwater.
The frog hunters. Yeah, that's a little. I mean,
it does get silly. I mean, it is fun. I guess the kids need something.
Sure.
But
do they? They do.
Oh God, and I love Mama Odie's her like glass lanterns, baubles, like, it's so beautiful.
All very pretty and wonderful.
I'm trying to think. I actually think that might be all of the notes that I had. I do love Tiana's place. I love that Eudora gets to see it, gets to witness it.
And that she gives her the gumbo pot. Yeah, it's very sweet. It's a very sweet movie. I really like it a lot. Again, like you said at the beginning, warts and all.
I feel very passionately about it. And I remember it was I think this was back during Vine. Because did you know Glozell?
Yeah.
She was at the parks, and it was one of the times where Tiana was on a float.
Oh.
And she like burst into tears. And she was like, I didn't know I was going to have that reaction.
Yeah.
She was like, it surprised her. Because she was like, when I was little and in Disney World, she was like, there weren't people that looked like me on the float, like the princess.
Yeah.
And
there are.
So, well, that was our conversation about The Princess and the Frog.
Yeah, all right. You can follow us on Twitter at soimwatching or Instagram at soimwatching the show. You can also like and subscribe down below. That's what helps us move up in the rankings, I guess. And other than that, you can donate to the cause if you'd like. And just let us know what you think. Bye.